Hey, welcome to GothCast, episode 10. This is Dr. Sanders.
And this is Robbie Gore.
Today we have another band, another good one.
Yeah, this is a band that's near and dear to my heart.
And near and dear to your heart.
Yes, I know. We'll have some disagreements as per usual episode.
I have a feeling that on this particular one we might have some pretty big disagreements.
Oh, I'm sure we will, because I have undying love for this band.
I do not. So we're talking about The Mission.
Yes, or for those of you who
are not in the UK. Well, basically, for those of you who are in America.
Yeah, you might see them listed as The Mission UK.
Yeah, so don't be surprised if you find the same albums that we're talking about listed as The Mission UK, even though they're technically called The Mission.
Yes. Actually, chances are you may be more likely to find them listed as The Mission UK.
Actually, it's funny because Spotify
splits them up.
Yeah, Spotify splits them, like the parts of their discography are as The Mission and parts of their discography are as The Mission UK.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what's up with that. That's really ridiculous.
Yeah, man, Spotify is just a little weird. Cool.
All right, so you want to go over some of the history of The Mission for those who are not acquainted with this band, because this band is kind of in one of those gray areas of popularity. Yeah. I feel like a lot of people have heard of this band. They may have even heard like Wasteland. Yeah. But they may not.
Or like a Hurricane or something like
that. Or Stay With Me, especially. A lot of people may not be super familiar with these guys or any of their full albums, maybe just like a single or two. So why don't you tell us about them? Okay.
Well, for those of you who don't know, this band essentially was created as an offshoot of the Sisters of Mercy. What happened was Andrew Eldritch was an asshole.
As always.
So after the recording of First and Last Noise, the members of Sisters of Mercy, Wayne Hussey and Craig Adams, decided to leave the Sisters of Mercy because they were pretty much over Andrew Eldritch's behavior in the studio and kind of the fact that they wrote the whole album by themselves. So they decided that they'd start their own band. And initially, they were not called The Mission. They called themselves and toured under the name The Sisterhood.
Yeah, and you can actually find tickets and like little promotional things where they're listed as Sisterhood.
Yep.
But then Andrew Eldritch came along and
called himself The Sisterhood.
Yeah, he wanted the name, so he released this really, really terrible recording. I think it's called Gifts. Yep. I'm not positive on that, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. And it's just this awful, awful, awful recording. I mean, it seems like everyone I show that to, they're like, wow, this sounds really terrible. Yeah. But he just took it he just recorded it to get the name.
Pretty much. Well, the funny part, too, is because if you're reading the history of this, when he does that, they had already kind of started to decide to call themselves The Mission. Mm-hmm. They just hadn't really made it official yet because they've been touring under the name The Sisterhood.
Yeah, they even said like it was probably the best thing that happened to them because they were like, well, we were kind of holding on to the past before and it was kind of like gimmicky. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, The Mission's the best way to go.
Yeah, and as soon as he released that, they were like, well, we don't really care. We were going to call ourselves The Mission.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I want to mention about the lineup too is at least in the beginning, is that Mick Brown, he's the drummer of the band, and he's from Red Lorry, Yellow Lorry. Yep. I feel like that band's really underrated.
Yeah, they have a really good lineup. So they got Wayne Hussey. He's obviously their frontman and their guitar player. They have bassist Craig Adams, Mick Brown playing drums, and they have guitarist Simon Hinkler from Artery and Pulp.
Yeah, so it's a pretty strong lineup. Like these guys were
they're like
pretty experienced musicians.
Yeah, they're well-toured, seasoned musicians.
And it feels like it when you listen to this band. You know?
Especially this first album when it comes out. You just get the feeling that they knew what they were doing. They were ready for it.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So it's going to be God's Own Medicine.
Yeah, so that's their first release. And God's Own Medicine is released in 1986.
Yeah, and so most people are probably familiar with this album or their second album. Yeah. Or at least the songs from this album. Mm-hmm. This has their most popular song, Wasteland, on it. Yep. Which is probably the one you're humming.
Probably. This album has a lot of good songs on it.
This album actually has a lot of great songs. And it's crazy to think that it came out 1 year after First and Last and Always. Yep. And, forming a whole new band with similar sound, but still different.
It's funny. So I describe The Mission to people as the best of the Sisters of Mercy and the Cult.
That's actually a pretty good comparison. Yeah. Okay. The Mission sound to me is way more of a straightforward rock band.
Oh, definitely.
Because it has the big epic drums and everything.
And the vocals are not as baritone-y. They're much more soaring classic rock vocals.
In fact, I feel like the structures of songs, like the simplicity in some of them, or the almost like the repetitiveness. I don't, I'm saying that in terms of like goth music. I mean, goth music is known for these very elaborate, like changing songs. Like
sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. Unless it's like death rock or something. But they have a much more straightforward approach to most songs.
They have a very 4/4 signature, straightforward approach.
Verse, chorus, verse sort of thing, or like intro riff, verse, chorus, verse, intro riff sort of thing.
Yeah, every song's either got a bridge or guitar solo.
And I feel like what really defines the sound for me that differs them from other bands, and maybe something that like I kind of waver on if I'm super into it or not, is one, the drum sound. The drums aren't super articulate, and because it's actually a live drummer, not like a drum machine, I kind of feel like I want more out of it, because he's not a bad drummer.
Yeah, no, he's not a bad drummer at all, and really it kind of boils down to the way that they mix the drums for the album. They're very gated, kind of reverby drums, and so it makes them sound very artificial to begin with. I don't know that I necessarily blame that on the band though, because like every album has those drums at that time.
Yeah.
So it is something that is lacking, and I would have liked to see a more organic mix of the drums that would have allowed their drummers, ability to shine more on the album. But for me, it doesn't distract from the quality of this album at all.
Yeah, I think this one is the least apparent for me. In that, I just wanted to note that their sound is kind of that sort of basic backbeat sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then the other one and this is where, I know we were already going to disagree right in the beginning, but I'm not the biggest fan of Wayne Hussey's voice.
Yeah, see, this is where we were going to disagree. I love his voice.
I want to say that before we got like really, really deep into this album. But Wayne Hussey's voice, I think he has a very good, unique voice, right? But I feel like with some of these songs, because they're a little bit more straightforward, his voice isn't that distinct, or it doesn't fit that type of music as well for me. Like,
I don't know. I see what you're saying. Yeah. But in a weird way, I disagree with you for the same reasons. And I'll explain. It's just that, so every goth band that's coming out at this time kind of has chorusy guitars with very gated, reverby drums.
Yeah.
And perhaps maybe they have different time signatures or less straightforward backbeat kind of drums, less AC/DC sounding drums.
Yeah.
But a staple for all these goth bands that their singers sound eerily the same to me.
You think so? Oh, I mean, what if you're comparing like Peter Murphy to some of these guys?
Yeah, but okay, comparing Peter Murphy to something like, I feel like that's almost a different class of musician.
Well, it's kind of a weird band because it's not like, it's Bauhaus.
Yeah, and Peter Murphy's a very, very unique musician. But if you're talking about like even something like the Sisters of Mercy, like there's 1,000 bands that sound like Andrew Eldritch.
Yeah, that's true. And they don't do it very well.
Yeah.
And I guess, he's distinct in a way that he's kind of a more classic sort of singer. And I mean classic in sort of like rock sense.
Well, even in just the sense of singing, he sings from his chest and not as much from his nose, which a lot of gothic singers do. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy the classic goth vocal, but for me, the Mission is fun because it is this more straightforward thing. And I enjoy challenging listens, and I enjoy songs that are interesting and intricate. And I'm not saying that the Mission aren't those things, but sometimes it's just fun to put on an album that's easy to listen to, and it's fun, and it's never annoying.
I guess so. I'm seeing your point, but it's still, he's just not my cup of tea sometimes.
No, I get it. It's not for everybody. I just happen to really like this band.
Yeah. So let's just start talking about some of the songs in here. and at least we're kind of talking about the sound, but this album is really kind of driven by the guitars.
Oh,
and
definitely.
That sort of sound. And so it has the 12 strings. And anybody knows me knows I'm a huge fan of 12-string guitars.
You can't like gothic music and not like 12 strings.
Exactly. So I really, really like the instrumentation on this album in terms of like the guitars and the bass and just kind of the warmth and kind of catchiness a lot of these songs have.
It's a really geeky thing to really like about this album, but I really, really like the way the guitars are mixed for this album.
Oh, yeah.
They do the one thing that I love it when it happens is they actually take advantage of the mid-range in a guitar. Because so many bands just cut the mid-range out and push the treble and the bass forward.
Yeah.
And the guitar is a mid-range instrument. It's meant to fill that sonic space.
Yeah.
And when you take that away from it, it bothers me so much. And you do not have that on this album.
Yeah. Of course, the opening track, like I said, probably their most popular song, at least today, is Wasteland. And you might like this song.
I like all of these songs.
I know. Well, I like the majority of songs, but in terms of the songs on this album, actually, Wasteland is not one of my favorites, surprisingly.
I wouldn't say that it's my favorite song on the album, but I do enjoy listening to it, and I don't think that it's a bad opening by any means.
I don't think it's that's hard. I don't think it's the best opening for this album. I think actually what Blood Brothers probably would have been a better opening. That's just
perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing about Wasteland, and I was trying to really hard to think about how I was going to say this on the podcast, and I think I have nailed it in terms of how I feel about this song, and that is that this song is not a bad song. It is a very catchy song, but just because it gets caught in my head does not mean it is the good song. You know what I mean? Like, for me, like, it's just, I think what they did is they took the song that was the catchiest and put it at the beginning, whereas there are better songs that aren't as catchy later in the album. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I do see what you mean. However, if you're thinking about your band from a political and economic perspective, you want to put the catchiest song first on the album because you want people to keep listening and you want people to buy the album.
I get that, but it's just like, that chorus. So the chorus always gets stuck in everybody's head.
Yeah.
The all of these ways, all over the wasteland. Like, that always gets stuck in everybody's friggin' head. But I just think there's so many better songs on this album. And I just don't see why, like, they couldn't have had videos or singles for a lot of the other songs on this album, and this one was pushed so hard. In fact, every single one of their live albums and stuff, like they have a song and everybody goes nuts. It's like, oh my gosh, Wasteland. But I don't see it as like the greatest song even on this album, and they don't even play a lot of their older material, like, you know, later in their career.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bummer to me that that's like the staple.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen more content pushed from this album besides that song.
Yeah.
I have no problem with the song. I do agree that there are songs on the album that I like more than this song.
Yeah.
But for me, this isn't a bad song nor a bad opening. It just perhaps maybe they could have created the track order a little bit better.
I don't know if this is blasphemy to say, but yeah, I just have never really liked that song that much, like Wasteland. It actually was one of the things that actually kept me from listening to this band like in depth.
Really?
It actually was, yeah, because years ago when I looked up The Mission, you know, like big Sister Mercy fan.
Yeah.
I was I looked up the
big Sisters of Mercy fan.
I know, yeah.
Put off by
I was put off
Wasteland.
I was put off by Wasteland because it just didn't do much for me. It's kind of a basic song and has like just the chorus was. I just feel like his vocals maybe like aren't the best in this song. You know, like they're not bad, but like I said, there's just a lot better material out there.
Oh my god,
I know.
This is like this is breaking my heart a little bit, Donnie.
I'm sorry, but that's really honestly how I felt. In fact,
it's okay. We kind of had the reverse discussion when we were talking about the Sisters of Mercy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I just don't like that song. It's just, I don't know, like something about it. There's just so much better stuff, and I was really put off from this band because every single time you look up The Mission, that's always like the first song that comes on, right?
Fair enough.
So,
all right. Well, let's talk about some songs you do like, Donnie.
Okay. First of all, favorite song on the album, Blood Brother. That is absolutely my favorite song on the album. And that's saying a lot because I like a lot of the other songs.
Yeah.
Of course, this bears a striking resemblance to another song from another band who is both rock-oriented and associated with goth music.
And associated with this band.
Yeah, and associated with this band, yeah. And that is The Cult.
Yep.
And so the song She Sells Sanctuary
sounds oddly similar to Blood Brother.
Yeah, and that song was released 2 years before this.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to call it plagiarism exactly.
I mean, I wouldn't. I mean,
they're different enough.
Yeah.
It's really the intro that's very striking and that strikingly similar. And then you get into the rest of the song and you're like, oh, it doesn't really sound that much like it.
I just think if it was a different sort of band, because it's almost sort of like mixed in a similar way. You know, it's kind of like big 80s sound.
Oh, definitely.
And his voice is kind of similar. So I think it makes it even more like, oh, okay, you know? Like, it's sort of one of those things where if they had a different sounding singer, or they maybe had like, they weren't just like a sort of gothic rock band.
Yeah. Where I let them get away with it more is that I think that they're a better version of the Cult.
Oh, so people are going to be mad at you.
I don't care. They can hunt me down.
Oh, weird. You'd have a lot of time on your hands if you did that. Yeah, I think I actually like the song better than She Sells Sanctuary, but I think
I do too.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Better version of the Cult.
I guess that's true. But then Stay With Me, great song. Love that one. First of their kind of like ballady sort of songs, you know? Some albums even have more than one.
Yeah.
So, because they are sort of that kind of romantic
they are
lyrics. Yeah, right? You're going to see a lot of that, especially on the next couple albums. But even this one, like Severina, which is, again, a sort of ballady thing, it kind of sounds like... These songs actually really made me notice that the formula for this band really does kind of exist, right? It's the sort of like intro riff and then sort of like build up like slower verse.
Oh, yeah.
And then
No, they have a formula. Okay. For me, the Mission are kind of like the AC/DC of Gothic rock.
I don't know if I go that far, but I see what you're saying.
Okay. I'll explain what I mean by that.
Okay.
And it's probably... not what most people would think. It has nothing to do with their status or notoriety. But it has to do with the fact that AC/DC has a sound that works for them. And they mix it up occasionally, but they pretty much stick to their formula. And the Mission kind of has a formula.
At least with these earlier albums, yeah.
Yeah.
I will talk about that with their future albums. But I see what you're saying, especially with these ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just kind of sound... A lot of songs kind of sound similar, but that's...
But to me, that doesn't detract from this album at all.
I don't think it does.
Yeah.
I really don't. But
and that's why I refer to them as the AC/DC of Gothic rock. Because if you're a classic rock fan, I don't feel like any AC/DC album bores you because the songs are structured similarly.
Yeah, your expectations are different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bridges Burning, really, really good song.
Oh, yeah.
Another one I would have probably started the album with.
Yeah, Blood Brother and Bridges Burning are so good. I kind of like some of the oddities on this album. I like Garden of Delight a lot.
Okay, totally don't like this song.
I know you weren't going to.
I don't like this song. Like,
I just like, I don't know. I like all these songs. It's hard for me to pick one that I really don't like off this album to be.
That's just like my big problem with this album is. And my problem with the Mission is some songs are so like meh for me. Like they don't excite me. They don't make me want to go like try and learn the riff or play the riff. But then you have these like super amazing songs like Bridges Burning and Blood Brothers and even Severina. Like but man,
it's
like
kind of how I felt about Sisters of Mercy.
I guess so. But yeah, Garden of Light, like
it is what it is. I like it. I know a lot of people probably don't like Love Me to Death, but I like that a lot.
Oh, I wanted to officially say on the podcast, I think this is the first time we've ever had a band that has the song title Love Me to Death.
Yep.
Or like any variation of it.
Yep.
So this is the first time I've known it. If we ever come across any song that's Love Me to Death or Love You to Death,
we're going to see that again.
We're definitely going to see it again. So I was surprised it was the first time we'd run across that.
Yep.
So Love Me to Death, I'm calling it first one in a long line of songs with the words love and death and you or me.
Yep.
So I really wanted to note that.
The death loving experience has really started here.
Oh yeah, exactly. With the Mission. But yeah, I just...
Typo Negative takes their own spin on it.
Oh, I know. That's when we do Typo Negative. Oh, that's gonna be the longest episode ever. Seriously, that thing's never gonna end. But I like this album. I really do. In fact, I put this album quite a bit. I have this album in my car. I just think that the sound here is good. It's actually really good, kind of like cruising music. Because goth music is kind of hard to find that, like good good driving music.
Yeah, for me, that's where this band really shines. Is it's a record that I can just put on and have fun listening to, and I don't have to be super involved with what's going on in the record. And I don't think there's any crime in being that band.
Yeah, I think that the courses, remember I was kind of saying like the formula of like slower versus bigger courses, the fact that you can pretty much remember every single song on this album by the chorus.
Yeah, all their choruses are super catchy, very stick in your head kind of chorus.
It gets like really big. The vocals are pushed super high into it. I think that is one of the biggest benefits that this album, or one of the biggest things that it has going for it, is that it sticks in your head really, really badly, especially certain songs. And whether you hate it or you love it, they're stuck in your head. You got to commend an album for that. You know, I always say that the worst crime of an album is to be boring.
Yeah, or to be forgettable.
Yeah, and this album is not that at all.
It's not forgettable in any way.
And even though, when I was describing it, I'm like, you know, these are straightforward drums. There's, you know, it's a riff, verse, chorus, verse. It sounds very basic, you know, the way I describe it. Even his voice sounds like way more classic rock oriented.
Yeah.
It is not a forgettable album. Like, it's done really well.
Yeah.
And that just shows it's good songwriting, you know?
Well, and that's the thing, is everybody is super concerned with trying to be avant-garde, and avant-garde doesn't always pay off. I mean, I happen to be a big fan of In the Flat Field, but that's a perfect example of songs that are not really straightforward, very weird kind of sounding songs, and you don't really like that album.
I'm not the biggest fan of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much God's Own Medicine. It's the easiest album to track down. It is the easiest one to find songs from.
It's not very expensive to buy if you want to get it on vinyl.
No, I don't think this band's in a ton of demand in a lot of places.
I think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I think it is too. That's why we're talking about them.
Yep.
But this one, I'm gonna say is definitely worth your time.
Oh, it definitely is.
And it actually, if you skip Wasteland, could get you really into this band. Or, I don't know, you could listen to Wasteland too.
Hey, Donnie, not everybody feels about Wasteland the way you do.
I know. It's wasted talent. No, that's not that bad. I just had to use the
I know.
the title.
You had to get a little punny on us.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this album's totally worth your time. I totally recommend God's Own Medicine if you are into gothic music and kind of want something a little bit harder maybe, but not like industrial sounding. It's really hard to explain what this album is. Like,
so we have gothic music, except generally it's called gothic rock.
Yeah.
But I feel like it really should just be called gothic music. This album to me really is gothic rock. Like, it's gothic rock and roll.
Yeah, I would say that. Yeah, gothic rock and roll, or just like gothic hard rock, you know, or something like that. So if you're kind of into this, or was that sounds appealing to you and you haven't heard this band, go take a listen and kind of judge for yourself. And if you like Sister Mercy, it's actually worth the shot because the instrumentation and the songwriting is pretty similar.
Yeah.
So,
and I personally like them better.
Of course. Yeah, I don't. But okay. All right, so this is gonna be our news segment for this episode.
Yep, got a few interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, one is probably gonna be a bit rant oriented. So
not like the rest of the episode.
Yeah, no, never. Especially not for me. But remember Alice in Wonderland, Robert?
Do I?
Yeah, not the 1950s one, the 2010 one.
What? There's a 2010 one?
Yeah, directed by Tim Burton.
Tim Burton directed it?
Yeah.
It must be great.
Oh, it's a movie. Yeah, it's so awful. So, as most people would know, Alice in Wonderland by Tim Burton is a pretty awful movie.
We're dicks, aren't we?
We are. But man, everyone thinks that movie is awful. That's a ton of issues.
No, it really is. It's so bad.
It's so funny because of the hype train associated with it.
Yeah.
That was one of the most profitable movies in history.
Yeah.
That's weird to think. And
so because of that, there's a sequel happening.
Yes, there is. So a trailer just came out for the new Alice in Wonderland, Through the Looking Glass.
Yep.
Oh boy. I am not excited about this movie at all.
Just looks like part 2.
It does. I'll say this. The aesthetic of Alice in Wonderland looks both better and worse. They have like a super like saturated look to it.
Yeah.
Where like the colors pop out like a lot. And of course, computer generated creatures from 5 years ago don't look as good as ones now.
Now, yeah.
So everything looks better, but who knows if in a few years that'll even stand up.
Yeah.
It still looks super, super computer heavy.
Yeah. It would it's, again, one of those movies that would benefit from practical effects versus all this CGI.
So that's coming out. If you want to know my opinion on the first Alice in Wonderland, it is really boring.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. There's so much stuff going on, and just the computer effects just totally take me out of it. And it literally looks like they're playing a video game or something like that, and somebody's green screened into it. That's the original one.
Yeah, and I don't know. For me, it just felt like Tim Burton as a producer just got to jerk off all over it. Yeah. That's how I would describe that movie.
I don't know. He's totally one of those directors who I think because he's so strange and he does make very profitable movies, people are just like, okay, just do it, Tim. You know, it's like, and he gets to make a lot of really bad decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, that's coming out.
Sorry, Mr. Burton. Not looking forward to this one.
Sorry. I'm very sorry. I'm totally not sorry. So much fun. He has good movies, man, but that's not one of them. Like,
yeah. We have another movie to talk about, though.
Yeah, 31.
Yes, directed by Rob Zombie.
So Rob Zombie, if you're not familiar with his movies,
he's a musician.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Rob Zombie, yeah. He's a musician.
Turned film director.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what to really expect from Rob Zombie's movies a lot of time. Yeah, because he definitely makes movies that he likes.
Yeah. He doesn't really care if anybody else wants to go see his movie. He just makes whatever he wants to make.
And that's actually what I kind of like about it.
Yeah.
Like what he does. He does some really weird stuff. Like the Super Beasto cartoon stuff. But, I mean, seriously, but House of a Thousand Corpses, it's okay horror movie. You know, it's a good, like, mindless one to put on.
Yeah.
It does feel like a music video most of the time.
Yeah,
where it's
he is a musician.
Yeah, I know. It just feels like the gore and stuff is like all stuff's happening. It's just like set, like the music's just so like the thing. I guess, you know, of course, if that's what he's doing.
Yep.
But then Devil's Rejects, I really like that movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Probably my favorite movie that he's ever done.
Really brutal.
It is. It is a very, very brutal movie because unlike with House of a Thousand Corpses, which was much more like campy and stuff, Devil's Rejects was a little bit more realistic in the way that it portrayed them as people. Even though the dialogue is kind of out there, still like that one line when he like has the person on the ground and so he's like, I am the devil and I'm sent here to do his work or something like that. Like, I'm like, oh God. And the guy delivers it so well. It's just like, it's so crazy. And I genuinely really enjoy that movie. And I know that is a movie that some people just absolutely hate.
Yeah.
But I really, really liked that. I thought that was a really good one he did. Lords of Salem, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
It's visually better than it is narratively. But
Rob Zombie's pretty good, I feel like, at making things look good.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But then 31, it's apparently about these people who get trapped in like an evil carnival type situation and these clowns are sent out to kill them.
Yeah.
It's got a clown thing.
Yeah. This could be a lot or nothing like the movie It.
Yeah. Oh, God, that movie's...
That's disturbing.
Yeah. So, it's such a weird movie.
I saw that when I was 3.
Like everybody saw that movie when they were a kid.
Right?
Think about it because it was Stephen King.
Yeah, your parents were like, oh, it'll be fine.
It's a book.
Yeah.
A lot of things are books. Yeah, I think that this is kind of an interesting concept because actually, if you've ever seen the movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space, that's like a cult classic.
Yeah.
So, who knows? He might be making the next Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
This movie looks interesting to me. I don't think I'll be seeing it because I have a horrible fear of clowns.
I'm totally going to see it.
I will not see this. I'll have nightmares for weeks if I watch this movie.
I think Johnny Depp's afraid of clowns.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Isn't that weird because he's the Mad Hatter? Pretty sure.
Well, he doesn't watch his own movies.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So that is our very kind of short news segment for this.
Very long episode.
Yeah. We didn't really have a ton to argue about. I just want to say that Alice in Wonderland is awful. I will still see the sequel because...
Why do you put yourself through that?
You're getting my money. I'm so sorry. You're getting my money, Tim Burton, to go see it. Because I just have to see if it's as bad as the original. Or the 2010 one. And I'm definitely going to see Rob Zombie's 31 because I've seen every Rob Zombie movie. So
I wish I could see that. I just can't stomach it.
I see.
All right. Well, that's been news.
Okay. Let's talk about children.
All right, and not what you're thinking about.
Yeah.
The album.
Talking about the album Children. So
this is the Mission's second official album. So there's an album that comes before this called The First Chapter, but it's essentially a compilation album where they just collect songs from their EPs and release it.
yeah, it's pretty good too.
It is really good because those EPs are really good, and I highly recommend actually kind of over this album, you the audience listening to those EPs.
Yeah. Because this album, the album Children, is extremely uneven.
Yeah. For me, it starts off in a decent place. I like the first 3 songs a lot. Tower Strength's not bad.
Well, Beyond the Pale is one of their most popular songs, and so is Tower of Strength on here.
My favorite song on this album is Winging a Prayer. That's just me personally.
It's okay. I like it, but the one thing that I do like that they're kind of introducing on here is the sitar kind of sound.
Yeah. Well, that will play a bigger role in later albums.
Yeah.
But they don't do that great a job on this album with it.
Yeah, it's used kind of sparingly. It's used on Hymn for America. It's used on, of course, Beyond the Pale.
Yeah,
and
it's not used very well on Hymn for America.
Yeah, not really. But I think you have an interesting opinion about the structure or the quality of this album. And how do you feel about the quality of the songs on this album?
This is, to me, I think the Mission's worst release.
Really, totally? Like, of all time?
It's
probably for this time, right?
For the stuff that I actually listened to from the Mission.
Okay.
Yeah, it's definitely an oddball. The First Chapter almost works better as a second album.
It does.
It's not their official second album. So this album, it's a step in a different direction for them. So they get John Paul Jones, former bassist of Led Zeppelin, to be the producer on this album, and he actually plays a lot of the keyboard parts on the album as well. But I feel like having John Paul Jones produce this album just made it like way too much of a classic rock album and not nearly enough of a gothic rock album. And in addition to that, the songs on this album are just not as strong as the last album songs.
Yeah, that's really the biggest issue here. Is one, the kind of shift in sound or the kind of evolution from where they were because, like we said, it's an album a year, right?
Yep.
Of course, like most bands we do. So there is a definite shift in their songwriting here and in terms of the leaning towards maybe a more popular tone,
Yeah.
Because...
Well, even Wayne Hussey mentions that he wanted this album to sound more classic rock.
Yeah.
Because... he's a huge classic rock fan.
But I think, unfortunately, with this one, it comes off a little too... Oh, it's funny. It's almost a little too modern for when it was released, right?
Yeah.
So the opening tracks, basically the first half of this album you could think of, in a way, would be songs that kind of sound like the first album.
Yeah. They're much closer to what you think of when you think of the Mission.
Yeah. And so right around the time Kingdom Come starts, which is kind of the actual defining point of half the album, it sort of goes into this
weird experimentation, sort of.
I'll just say it. I'll say flat out. I mean, it really reminds me of like that 80s hair metal sound.
Yeah,
and
it's just
well,
really... they have songs that are like really soft in that section too. Which is why I say experimentation, and then they have songs that are like super 80s hair metal. Yeah,
I mean the song Heat.
Yeah,
I mean it just totally sounds like that. And Kingdom Come, there's actually a band called Kingdom Come. It's pretty good. But the song Kingdom Come on here, it just has that totally like 80s guitar sound. Like it reminds me of something like who would be like a really ridiculous one, like Dokken or something. Maybe not that bad.
Not quite that bad.
Okay, but you know what I mean. It's sort of starting to sound similar to that. Where, as the first part of this album, like Beyond the Pale, A Wing and a Prayer, Fabian, Heaven and Earth, which is like another kind of ballad song, and Tower Strength, really sound more like the first album, or at least a lot more similar than these later songs. And so that's why I'm kind of conflicted on this album.
It could have been a great follow-up, but it just... Unfortunately, I have to agree with you. It's not a good follow-up for them.
Yeah, I think it would have probably been, if they kind of had the latter half of the album sound similar to the first half of the album,
yeah,
I think we probably would have been like, well, it's kind of like God's Own Medicine, but
Yeah.
you know, the songs are not maybe as strong.
Or
you know?
perhaps maybe if they had taken some of the songs from that were put on the first chapter
And then,
that didn't make God's Own Medicine and used them for this album, they might have had a more cohesive album that we could have said was really good, you know, follow up to God's Own Medicine.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One thing I do want to note is I really do like bands who do long songs very well, and that's why I've always really enjoyed like Typo Negative, because I feel like they do not all their material.
Yeah,
they do, you know, long songs.
A lot of it.
Yeah, a lot of it they do long songs like really well. Like even like Anesthesia, Love You to Death, like that song. Right, it's coming up again, right? Twice in the podcast.
That is the radio.
Yeah. Well, the album version of that song of Love You to Death is really good. Like I forget that it actually is that long.
Yeah.
But The Mission, unfortunately, has been, I feel, doesn't do extremely long songs very well.
I don't feel like they do it well on this record, but so like when we get to the next record, I feel like there are longer songs on that album that I think are really good. I think that this album really suffers because I think it's their first time really doing long songs, because their last album is definitely not like that at all.
It's not
They're
super
very
like,
structured, kind of straightforward 4-minute songs. They're almost kind of taking the classic rock approach to gothic music.
Yeah.
And this album is trying to break out of that, I guess, but I don't think that it works for them.
No, Tower of Strength, the album version, clocks in at around 8 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is way too long for that song.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And it, like I said, it's honestly probably one of my favorite songs on the album, but it just is too long for me. And I actually find myself liking the single version better because it just cuts out like 3 minutes of it.
Yeah.
And it just is kind of more like a better structured song for me. I don't get bored of it because unlike a lot of bands who do really long songs, they don't tend to break up the pieces or make the pieces too different.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of one of the issues. And maybe I am just spoiled by like Typo Negative or something like that. Even a song like...
I don't think anybody's ever made that statement
I'm
before.
being spoiled by Typo Negative. But, you know, I'm used to songs where like those really, really long ones, like 11-minute songs.
Yeah.
Them having very, very different parts. Like a good example is Christian Woman, right?
Yeah.
It has 3 extremely distinct parts that tell the same kind of story or tell the same kind of theme, where it's kind of like the plotting kind of grungy song, you know, kind of like not grungy, I'm trying to think of the kind of like dirty, gritty sounding song in the beginning, and just the and then it has a slow acoustic part and it has like a more punk rock, hard rock kind of thing at the end. And The Mission, while they do kind of figure it out on their later releases, this one, the longer songs just tend to be the same kind of sound throughout most of it.
It's too repetitive. Like at this point in their career, I don't think that they really have the chops for long songs. They're great musicians, but they're used to writing these short songs, or not. I shouldn't say short, but these average commercial length songs.
Yeah.
And then for them to go and release songs that are, 8-9 minutes, which is characteristic of music that would be more experimental or progressive, that's definitely not been their anthem or, I'm going to be punny here, their mission statement.
Good. It's awful.
More awful than your last pun.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Hymn for America is not a good song.
Oh, God. No, it's not.
The only thing that is not like super 80s about that song is the vocals. Everything else just sounds like...
Sort of.
Well, you know what I mean. Like, in terms of ridiculous stereotypes. Like that. Like, of course, he has like 80s kind of vocals, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, that song I do not like.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that I just kind of halfway through the album, I kind of like to click stop.
Yep.
And then skip to the next album.
Yeah. One thing I want to say about this album, man, is that the album art's really creepy.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of The Mission's album art. That's one thing that I actually don't really like about The Mission, and I'm a huge Mission fan. Yeah. But they just don't seem to know what they're doing when it comes to selecting album art.
Well, not even album art. I mean, yeah, album art is pretty bad. I'm not gonna even try and act like I really enjoy the album art for any of these albums. No,
I'll flat out say it as a Mission fan. I think that they don't release good album art. And for that reason, I don't think that they sell very many t-shirts or, merchandise. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of the reason that they're not as popular as a lot of other bands, because they have great logos and, merchandise that they can push. But the Mission just has like this Celtic logo and, really simple album art that's usually gold, and it's not like goth people like wearing gold.
Yeah, depends. But I think one of the other issues with the Mission in terms of popularity and people getting into them is actually the fact that they kind of are stuck in between that sort of classification as hard rock and as gothic rock.
Yeah.
And if you look at their image, it's honestly hard to decide.
Yeah, but then you take a band like The Cult, who kind of has the same problem but are much more successful than The Mission.
Yeah, I totally would agree with that. But I think because of The Cult, I really feel like The Cult are more associated with hard rock today.
Well, I feel like they just embrace that hard rock thing. They are just like, okay, yeah, call us hard rock. Whereas The Mission were like, well, we don't really want to commit to being called hard rock. Yeah. And they liked releasing gothic stuff, and their stuff wasn't always very gothic, but they still always had those ties. They are still the band that created First and Last Noise.
Yeah, and they definitely have a unique look. It's like that kind of gypsy, like the Cult.
It's a very like 90s kind of grungy gypsy kind of look to it. So imagine the Black Crowes without bell bottoms. That's kind of what they look like.
Maybe not that severe, but yeah, it is kind of like hippie / gypsy-ish sort of mixed with gothic stuff.
I'm also curious if you're thinking of what the Black Crowes look like now, which is nothing like what they looked like
at this time. I know.
They actually look very similar to this band at this time.
So this album, in a nutshell, is just kind of
sophomore slump.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's kind of a bummer because it does have some really good material on it. But as compared to the first album, and
even their compilation album.
Yeah, even the first chapter, it just doesn't really stand up to it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it was one of those albums where there's a few good songs, the rest of it's eh.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't think there's a lot else to say about this album.
Yeah. Creepy album art.
Yep. All
right, Carved in Sand.
Yep. All right, for me, this is another one that I personally really like.
I do like this one. I think it's a lot more consistent than Children.
Oh, it's way more consistent than Children.
In fact, in some ways, it's funny because it's released in 1990, and it sounds more like their music from 1986.
Yeah, I know.
Good.
Children sounds more like a 90s album than this one does.
Yeah, that's actually true. Or it sounds way more of the time in a negative way.
Yeah.
That's what I can say about Children. But Carved in Sand is actually a pretty strong album for them.
I completely agree.
Now, the songs, they are, again, very consistent. I think they do a really good job of actually mixing up the songs enough, like the sounds of them.
Yeah.
Enough with like the effects and everything. To even if they have kind of more straightforward songs again, that they feel more distinct.
Yeah, there's more variation. And even the opening track, Amelia, we see some grit in his vocal, which we haven't seen before. And I liked hearing that.
Yeah. It's less of like bellowing.
Yeah, I know. We actually hear his voice start to crack and growl. And
yeah. Especially with that song, there's some kind of...
some dark content in those
kind of
lyrics.
Weird overtones. I don't want to get into it that much, but just look up the lyrics to Amelia and you'll kind of...
If you're daddy's little girl, you might like this one.
Yeah. Okay. Ugh, God. But then, of course, one of their most popular songs. Like I said, every single album has a ballad.
Yep.
Or at least like a quintessentially like, this is the ballad song.
Yeah.
And on this one, it's Butterfly on a Wheel.
Yeah. And I know you don't like this one as much.
I don't.
I like this one. I think that this is a good ballad for them, whereas their last album I felt like had ballads that really dragged and were kind of boring. I don't feel like this is a boring ballad for me.
Well, I'm just going to say it. I mean, this song reminds me of like a Def Leppard song. And it sounds like one, It just...
Yeah, but it sounds better than a Def Leppard song.
It is better. Of course, it's better than a Def Leppard song. I mean, The Mission could definitely write like a song that has a little more sustaining power, like emotionally, than a Def Leppard song.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just so produced, and I hate using that word, but it just feels like the song like lacks a lot of like heart in it, and it just is so poppy. Like I think that's one of the things is it's so geared towards a specific, like, this is a hit ballad, you know, like and every album they've been doing it, you know, like this ballad, this album.
They always have the one song that is really supposed to be that.
Yeah, but I think with this one, it's just like, okay, instead of being like, hey, let's write a great song, and if it turns out to be a ballad, it's okay. It's like, well, here, we need the ballad, you know, and this ended up being
Well, I kind of feel like that's their writing style. I don't feel like they're like, hey, let's write an album.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Their writing style is very much, okay, we need these songs, we need these songs, we need these songs. They're a very organized, very structured band.
Not like the David Bowie of Gothic bands. I do like a lot of songs, and one song I really like is Sea of Love.
Oh, I love Sea of Love.
Because this actually shows that they're kind of able to stray out of that sort of 12-string acoustic or like hard rock guitar.
Yeah.
And that's really what the first two albums were centered on. Especially the first album, you know, it's 12-string acoustics, right? And just kind of like a overdriven guitar sound. Second album is getting that kind of cheesy, like 80s sort of guitar.
It's a weird, I don't know whether to call it 80s or 90s, because it almost reminds me so much of the 90s material that was still sounding very 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what the second album reminds me of. Like, it sounds like 80s bands releasing albums in the 90s.
Well, this one, it kind of has its own thing, right? It still sounds like a kind of 80s album.
Well, it's 1990. We're not too far away from the 80s.
But it is a very crisp, very dynamic album. You know, it feels very produced. And a lot of the songs don't suffer too harshly from it. I would say Butterfly on a Wheel is actually the one I would complain with most, or maybe like Grapes of Wrath, where it almost seems like the dynamics are more important than actually a groove or like a feeling on this album.
I don't know. To me, Into the Blue is like the worst song in this album.
Well, okay, that song, yeah. Like, I don't like that song. But I really feel like that's...
Same with Believe. I'm not a big fan.
Believe. Oh, that song's really eh. But that's kind of one of the issues I have with Carpet and Sand, is that God's Own Medicine, you know, that album's so good.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is it really feels like a band. You know, even with the kind of album sound on it, it still feels like a band.
Well, that really was the first true lineup of The Mission. And if I remember correctly, I believe they have lineup changes by the time they get to this album. And when they get to the next album, it's pretty much just Wayne Hussey recruiting people to like record.
And that's always a bad thing unless you start out like that.
Yeah.
It's like, even when you start out like that,
he's run into the Andrew Eldritch syndrome.
Just keep getting new guys in.
Yep.
I don't know. That's kind of my biggest complaint about this album, is that it does have really good songs. In fact, there's a lot of really good stuff on here. Like I said, Sea of Love. Actually, the Paradise.
Paradise is so good.
Yeah, Paradise is just so good. And
I like Hungry as a Hunter.
I like Hungry as a Hunter better than I like Paradise. My problem with Paradise is, oh my gosh. Remember I was talking about how they have like romantic lyrics and all that stuff? This is one of those bands that sometimes for me veers a little too much into that cheesy sort of atmosphere.
This is the man who says that the Sisters of Mercy's lyrics are acceptable.
Well, they're slightly campy. I don't know, like
slightly.
Okay, well, they're very campy, but I just feel like this band is trying to be like a big kind of epic rock band. You know, big, like, we are big, you know, rock star type of thing. You know,
well, they're huge hair metal fans. They state it all the time. In fact, they form a hair metal cover band in the midst of like recording these albums just for fun.
Look, I don't want to hear that, okay? Don't be talking about people like that. You don't know if they have families or not. but yeah, I feel like that sort of stuff does affect the way this band produces.
Yeah.
This one, it is a very crisp album, right?
Yeah.
It is good. It's definitely better than Children. But it just has that issue of sounding almost a little too, like, sterile. Like, it really doesn't sound like these songs were written or jammed too much before they actually went in the studio, or like it was just like the studio really helped shape them.
Yeah.
Whereas totally with God's Own Medicine, it felt like these were like jammed out songs. And
God's Own Medicine is definitely their strongest release, but I don't really feel like this album suffers that much.
No, I don't think it does. In fact, I think it's good for what it is. I'm just saying compared to God's Own Medicine. In fact, this song is freaking good. I mean, Hungry as a Hunter.
Yeah.
That song's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's like if this had been their initial release, I almost think that we would, or you would at least, like this album a lot more because you would have appreciated that this band that came out of nowhere released this album. And then if God's Own Medicine came after that, you've been like, oh, wow, they really stepped up their game.
That's probably what I would have said.
Yeah.
Honestly. I think the guitar's a lot better on this album. I just want to mention that.
Yeah.
Especially after Children. I think the guitar...
The guitars and Children are just...
They kind of just realized what they kind of did wrong from the last album.
Yeah.
It still is kind of getting like, for 1990, it's a very modern sort of sound in the way it's produced. There's not really too much grit here, in the performances, but I really like it. It's different from what they were doing before, yet similar.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what you said, kind of like the AC/DC thing. Like, it's different, but it's similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's pretty much that album.
Yeah.
I just wanted to briefly mention, because I can't believe that we glossed over it, that they included a Dream On cover on Children.
Oh, I can't believe we glossed over that. Oh my God, that was so bad. I think we tuned it out of our minds.
Yeah, I think there's some memory repression there.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, they covered Dream On by Aerosmith on Children. And
so
I think
bad.
that's one of the main reasons that I can't back that album.
Oh man, I completely forgot about that. That is so funny, but yeah, that song is bad. Oh,
yeah.
It sounds, it's just terrible. I don't even know how to describe it.
So in a nutshell, skip Children and listen to Carved in Sand.
Yeah. So that's it.
So just before we get into the next album, just kind of wanted to briefly mention the album Grains of Sand. So again, another technically non-album release for the Mission.
Yeah.
Grains of Sand are all the B-sides that were recorded in the same session for Carved in Sand.
Yeah.
So basically they had a ton of material and they finished recording very quickly. And so they were left with all these tracks and they kind of just decided to release them as an album.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's technically not their next official album, which is why we're not really reviewing it.
Yeah.
But it's out there if any of you feel so inclined to listen to it.
It's okay.
I don't know that I would suggest it.
Not necessarily. But the one that we're going to talk about is their fourth official album.
Yes.
So I want to make that clear. That's why we're talking about this next one. It's Masque.
Yeah.
So Masque.
Yeah, the French spelling.
Yeah.
It's 1992.
And this is where...
We're hard into the 90s.
Yeah. So most people... I would say most people probably listen to The Mission's first two albums. Maybe Carved in Sand because it has Butterfly on a Wheel.
Yeah.
So those are the albums that most people focus on. So it's the first three. This one, Well,
it's marked as... People regard this album as their decline as a band.
Yeah. And you can definitely see why. Because this album... it's such a weird album.
It's really all over the place. So it's really hot and cold. There's songs on it that I like. There's songs on it that I don't. But for me, the weirdest part about it is that nothing on this album sounds like The Mission.
No, that's really the biggest issue we're having here. So it really feels like they were trying to cater to that sort of alternative rock radio thing.
Yep.
And, this is a completely different environment than they were in at the time, obviously. At this time, alternative rock was basically making a comeback, right? So they're definitely trying to cater to alternative rock. And you just have these very, very bad songs. And some of them are actually pretty good, but they don't sound like The Mission.
Yeah, no, there's some good songs in this album, but they don't feel like Mission songs at all.
Yeah.
And they're not what I look for in The Mission's fourth album.
Yeah, so right off the bat, we start this album with Never Again.
Horrible song.
Awful. In fact, it's just really frustrating.
I've noticed a pattern in the songs that I do like.
Every other one?
Yeah, kind of. So I hate Never Again. Mm-hmm. I really like Shades of Green. I hate Ever May You Shine. I like Trail Scarlet. I hate Spider and the Fly. I like She Conjures Me Wings. I hate Sticks and Stones. I like a Child Again.
That's the okay song.
I like Who Will Love Me Tomorrow. And then from then on, I'm just kind of done.
Yeah. I probably like this album a little bit less than you. I tend to be a little bit harder on stuff sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, right? But it's just the opening track, right? Never Again has these like cheesy, awful, like synthy keyboard parts.
It's just a bad song.
And just the thing that suffers the most on this album, other than everything. Well, one thing I would note that I thought was declining with this album was the lyrical content. And so he's always kind of had the cheesy kind of lyrics, right? You know, about love and like all this stuff. This one just takes a cake. Like, it's so pandering.
Well, to me, this isn't even a comparison to the last few albums. This is just like clearly crappy lyrics.
Yeah. It just has like a ridiculous 90s sound. It's trying to be crisp and like still have like guitars as a part of it and like big drums. Like, hey, we're still a rock band, but we sing really, really poppy songs. And not just catchy, but poppy songs.
Yeah.
And that's really a big difference. There's a big difference between a catchy song and a poppy song.
Well, a poppy song is not necessarily a bad song.
It's not, but for the mission, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Because they were so much geared towards like hard rock and classic rock, like influence. You know, they were a gothic rock band, but they had that influence.
They were super into like metal and stuff like that.
Yeah, but they just went into alternative rock, and they almost seems like they were even influenced by like ska music or something. Because there's like trumpets and...
I was going to say like there's a strong 60s presence on this album that we don't see on other things. So like, and what I mean by that is we have lots of psychedelia influence, lots of trumpets, lots of weird instruments that you wouldn't normally see on tracks.
Oh yeah, Until There's Another Sunrise, right? With the like openings, like kind of beating on, sounds like teacups or something, really weird like that. Oh man, the bad stuff on this just is so bad.
Yeah.
That's like really one of the biggest issues is that...
I think one of the bigger issues though is that the good stuff doesn't work for this band.
Yeah, that's true. It's okay, right? Even Like a Child Again. It's a good song, right?
Yeah.
Has a good violin kind of track on it. I really like that, like the violin part. Does it work as a Mission song? Not really.
It's not what I want from the Mission. I wouldn't say that it's a bad song from their to release, but if you're a Mission fan and you're used to listening to God's Own Medicine or any of the first three albums and you hear this album, you're gonna be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the biggest issues. Who Will Love Me Tomorrow? It's okay. I mean, I like the piano parts and stuff. I know you're not the biggest fan of that song.
I mean, I like that one better than the last few songs.
What about... Oh man, You Make Me Breathe.
Horrible.
It's so bad.
From one Jesus to another, god awful. Until There's Another Sunrise, another piece of crap.
Yeah, I kind of like some of the parts in that though.
I completely disagree.
I don't know why. It's an awful song. It's a terrible song, but I kind of like it. It's really weird. One thing I'd say about the vocals on this album is, other than having pretty bad lyrics, the effects on the voice are so bad. Like, because they use like a whole bunch of chorus effects. And,
well, they kind of always did, but it's overdone on this album.
Well, inside the other albums, it was more of like double tracking the voice or making it bigger with like reverb or...
Okay, but double tracking, essentially what it is creating chorus, because that's what chorus is.
Yeah, but it's not as noticeable as this.
It's much more presence on this album.
This one's... Oh, God, it just bugs me. That's actually one thing that I just hate the most with this, along with everything else. But She Conjures Me Wings. What is up with the song?
I actually like that song.
It's like... It's not bad.
It's just really weird.
What? What is up with this song? Like,
yeah,
it's unlike anything they've ever done.
And aside from the fact that this whole album is unlike anything they've ever done, it's unlike anything that's on this album.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that. Everything about this album, I just am so conflicted about. Right?
Yeah.
The good songs are just okay. The bad songs are like almost unlistenable for me. Like, I just hate them.
What's sad is that, in a weird way, I'm not sure which album I like less, Children or this album.
No way. Children, even though it's flawed, is way better than this.
I don't know, man. I'm not a big fan of Children.
Are you kidding me? This album, Masque, is just like this experiment gone wrong. And in terms of like every single song in
That's
here.
how I felt about Burning from the Inside, though, but you seem to really
Burning
like
from
that.
the Inside is a very good album, okay?
Yeah,
like,
that's your opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Masque, I can't believe you're comparing Burning from the Inside to Masque, okay?
I hate Burning from the Inside.
That's ridiculous, because Masque is
Burning from the Inside sounds nothing like any of the other Bauhaus records.
It's similar to Masque.
No, not in any way. None of it.
Are you kidding me? Okay,
Peter Murphy doesn't even sing on like 90% of the album.
Yeah, but it's still the same the rest of the band. I mean...
And they all basically play Clash songs for the whole album.
Not entirely. I mean, yeah, there's some of that stuff that's similar to that, but I mean...
Some of it.
I mean, okay, like, that's totally different. This is like a band taking it and going full on to almost a different genre. And
in that album isn't?
I mean, they're still like a rock band, and they were kind of weird, like gothic rock band. Like Bauhaus is freaking weird rock band, and the Mission UK is like...
Is not allowed to be a weird rock band?
Well, for 3 albums you have just more straightforward.
How many albums do we have from Bauhaus that were more straightforward?
Like
3?
Well, I mean, think about it. Well, okay, how's In the Flatfield straightforward?
Yeah.
Well, how is it straightforward? I mean, it's like more like ambient and crazy.
Yeah, but it's consistent. And I think that's the argument that you're making about the Mission, is that they have a consistency of sound for their first 3 albums.
I feel like it's totally hard to say that this album is anywhere even close to what they were doing. Whereas at least Burning from the Inside, like, She's in Parties and stuff, like, that could go on, like, Masque or something. I mean, think about it. Telegram Sam was even a single from
Maybe
them.
if Peter Murphy sang it.
He does sing it. She's in Parties?
Does he sing on that one?
Yeah, he sings on that one.
So this is one?
Oh, is that the one? Yeah, he sings on more than one song on the album. But
yeah, like 2.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I don't see how you're drawing this conclusion, because this album's a mess. Absolute mess. Burning from the Inside is like a messy masterpiece.
No, I completely disagree with that.
That's so ridiculous.
That's your opinion.
Okay, even if you don't agree that Burning from the Inside is a good album, Masque is just so awful. I mean, I'm
not saying it's not awful. I'm just saying that their second album is also awful.
I don't know. I just don't see. It's just really hard, because at least Children has a few good songs on it, right? At least the first half is like pretty consistently good. This one, basically songs that we like on this, or we think are good because we're like, well, if it wasn't the Mission, it might be okay. At least from Burning from the Inside.
It's not even that if it wasn't the Mission, it might be okay. There's songs on this album that if it wasn't the Mission, I would like this album. Like, if a completely different band had put this out, I'd be like, oh, this is cool. This is different. This is interesting.
I just don't know. Like, I just feel like it's just too, like this just not good enough for me. I don't know.
That's how I felt about a lot of albums that we've talked about.
I don't know. This one, I feel like we're really disagreeing on, and I almost have a hard time seeing what you see in this album.
I see the fact that this album is all over the place, which makes it suffer. We have one song's good, one song's bad, one song's good, one song's bad, and then we have 3 in a row at the end that are terrible. But the songs that are good on this album are really well written. They are not songs that I would expect the Mission to release, and I do not recommend it to Mission fans. However, I think that they are good songs, and I can't call them bad songs because of that.
So these bad songs are really bad?
No. There's good songs on this album that you wouldn't listen to because you're a Mission fan.
Definitely not. I would almost say if you're like a fan of alternative rock, like maybe. But still, there's a lot better alternative rock bands, a lot better alternative rock albums. I don't really see
a lot of this stuff as being that alternative rock. It's just weird and quirky, like... I don't know. When I think of what do you think of when you think of alternative rock?
Bauhaus. No, I don't know. Something like Nirvana or something.
Nothing on this sounds anything like Nirvana.
I don't know.
Nothing on this sounds anything like Garbage.
What about
nothing
like
on
Weezer? I don't know.
Nothing on this sounds anything like Weezer.
It's just frustrating. I don't think we're ever going to agree on this.
No, we're not.
Point is, I think this album sucks.
It's not a good album. I think that in some ways it's more daring than their second album is.
Okay. That's Masque. Man, what a bummer to end on with this band. It's almost like so weird. Well,
that's been GothCast.
Very heated argument. Okay, well, put aside my feelings on Masque. I have a feeling we're going to come back to the argument some other time.
Probably.
But, yeah, this has been GothCast. That's our feelings on the Mission's first 4 albums. This is not one of those bands where I'd be really surprised if we did the rest of them.
Yeah. Because there's other good stuff to talk about.
It's bodier.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
But there's other stuff that they release that's worth talking about.
Yeah.
For instance, their compilation albums. Some of those are really good.
Yeah, we might do something like that. Yeah, that was everything from God's Own Medicine to Masque. A weird band.
Yeah.
Like, good band, just, I think, made some pretty weird decisions. Like a lot of bands, I guess we talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this has been GothCast, episode 10.
Yep. And again, as we always do, gotta plug our social media really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We got an Instagram account, GothCast. We got a Facebook account, GothCast. We have a website, gothcastradio.com. No www, because apparently the internet's done away with that. You can find us on iTunes. Just search GothCast. We'd greatly appreciate a review.
Yeah, I like this.
And if you have any questions or suggestions, we gladly take them. You can reach out on any of those mediums, or you can email us directly at gothcastradio@gmail.com.
Yep.
And so we actually did get a request from someone, Georgia CV, actually mentioned that she would like us to do an episode on the birthday party, which we definitely will.
Yeah, man. I love Nick Cave.
Yeah. Huge Nick Cave fan, and that's definitely a big part of the gothic
I guess
evolution.
we should release the bats on that one, right? No. Okay.
Yes, Donnie.
But yeah, so you can expect that one coming up. I don't know if it's gonna be the next one.
I don't think it'll be like one that's coming up quickly.
Yeah.
But it's one we're definitely getting to.
Yeah, we kind of have a kind of hit list of a certain few bands we'd like to do.
Yeah.
But that's definitely on there.
Yep.
And especially with Nick Cave, we know how many people love him. In fact, I'm a huge Nick Cave fan. And
I am as well.
Yeah. So that's coming, definitely. But yeah, thanks for listening.
Yep. It's been GothCast.
Yeah. I'm Dr. Sanders.
I'm Robbie Gore.
And stay spooky.